Right Network. Mobilizing, countering the left, energizing the right. New Right Network, home of the New Right movement.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to New Right Network. Tonight, your host, Brian Smith and
Carrie Smith.
Giving you all the late-breaking news of the day, wrapping it all up, making sense of it, exposing the fake news, giving you the real news. Right here is New News Media, folks. This is where you're going to get the real news. This is the outlet of where it's at. Share this with your friends and family. If this is the first time you've been on the show, welcome. Crush the share, crush the like. And if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you get the notifications. Also on Periscope, make sure you click the subscribe thingy on Twitter.
Did you mention Facebook?
Facebook, and Periscope has got a notification thing too.
Okay.
Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. You know how Jack is. He's not really with it all the time.
He's never with it. He was with it one time ever, and that's when he accidentally invented Twitter.
Yes, exactly. And so today, some great news coming out today. We've got a section in the show notes called MAGA News.
Interesting.
I'm going to start doing that more often. And if you ever want any of the links or any of the information that is part of this show, just drop down into the description below. All the links to all the different profiles that we'll showcase here are all there. All the links to all the different articles that we talk about are all there as well. And today we're going to be really diving into this big thing that just happened. We knew that Obama's White House lawyer, Gregory Craig, was going to be indicted. It was assumed he was going to be indicted. His lawyers even made mention that we think he's going to be indicted. And lo and behold, he's indicted.
Oh, there you go. That's kind of a shocker because it flies in the face of what we've been seeing for the past 2.5 years, which is that maybe more than 2.5 years, actually. So Republicans always get busted for any little thing legally, criminally.
Yeah.
And the Democrats do wild illegal things, just totally over the line. And it's always just a slap on the wrist because they didn't mean to do it. Clearly, if somebody does not intend to break the law, then they should be let go with not even so much as a slap on the wrist. And that's how it's been going. And this time, with this Greg Craig guy, wow, it just seems shocking, doesn't it?
It does. And not saying that Julian Assange, which was yesterday and the whole debacle with that, if you are interested in knowing the real details behind Julian Assange and what's going on, check out the show from yesterday. Had a lot of fun, a lot of great information.
Including the last 2 minutes, which had an open mic, and we were unaware of that.
Yes.
And that was a lot of fun. We got to talk about how Cassandra Fairbanks was reporting from the British Embassy in D.C.
Right.
And that was interesting.
And again, like I said, not saying that Julian Assange is conservative by any means. It's not the point. It's just that this by Deplorable Cody. Hillary Clinton said Julian Assange must pay for what he did. I mean, really? It's not like the pot calling the kettle black or anything.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and that's what didn't I just say that?
Right.
Democrats do whatever.
And my question is, when will she pay for what she did?
There you go. Deplorable Cody. That was spot on. Spot on.
Right. And we know, folks, we live under a two-tier justice system.
Yes.
And this is something my pastor told me. He said, that the reason why you're seeing all this corruption or people not being punished is because we live under a system that was created by flawed human beings.
Sure.
We're all flawed people, and that's who created the system. So,
yeah,
you know.
And meddled with it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you're right. It's interesting. I had been looking at the Constitution as like this chiseled in stone, hard and fast, perfect philosophy. And I was bringing up to an actual teacher who teaches, I think he teaches social studies at a very, very prestigious high school here, and he's also a lawyer. And I was bringing up the contradictions in the general function of the Constitution. And I said, am I getting something wrong? Can you explain this? And he was like, honestly, it was meant to be messy on purpose so that they go into these chambers and debate and have to come out with an answer right then and there. So they can't just sit at home and say, well, the Constitution says this, so we got to do this. Constitution says that, so we got to do that. They have to come together and argue it out. So it's kind of interesting. So the fact that it's flawed actually has some pros to it, but we're all fallible human beings, right. And that it is what it is.
And looking back, you and I have talked about this over the decades. Looking back, hindsight's always 50-50, and you can't do anything about that. I mean, I'm just saying. So when we look back at the Constitution, one thing that we argue that should be included is that anybody with communist ideologies cannot be elected to office. And now I'm throwing in there anybody with ideologies that are the opposite or attempt to go against everything that we know and hold to be true, you cannot hold office. And there was something in 1956 that was put into place, and in 1990 by the globalists was removed. Okay. So Muslims now technically are allowed to hold office. And you see what's going on. And then the show notes today, Omar, AOC, well, AOC's not, she's crazy, but Omar and Rashid Tlaib, this is the problems that we're having now that someone from the Islamic faith is now a representative in Congress. We're having some serious issues with anti-Semitism.
The rhetoric is troubling.
Right, with the rule of law, because they don't, in their minds, they don't have to abide by the Constitution.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, and that's another messy thing about the Constitution and just society in general, you guys have to realize, we all have to remember that laws are generally voluntary, and they seem hard and fast because of the social pressures, peer pressure and whatnot, but you can do whatever you want at all. Yeah. Whatever you want. What is stopping you? Well, if there's a law written on the books or in the Constitution or whatever, that's just giving somebody else permission to sue you or to call the cops on you or whatever it might be. So it's all voluntary. Right. It all requires us all to pitch in and do our part. But when you don't think about it, if somebody does something unconstitutional, California is a perfect example. They've got all these laws.
The whole state's unconstitutional.
Right. They have all these laws that are so clearly against the Second Amendment, it's ridiculous. But and the Second Amendment is the supreme law of the land. All of the laws in the Constitution, supreme law of the land. They trump all state laws, right? And this is known by anybody who knows how our laws work. And yet they have all these blatantly unconstitutional laws against the Second Amendment. And why do they get away with it? Because nobody came forward and said, damn it, I'm not putting up with that. Right. It took in D.C. they had the same thing, anti-Second Amendment law. It took for a cop named Heller to say, you know what, I'm rolling the dice. I'm going to risk my freedom because everything.
He couldn't take his gun home with him or have his gun on.
He could not possess a gun in his own personal home, even though he was a police officer, because of D.C. law that was totally unconstitutional against the Second Amendment, against your right to bear arms. And so he said, you know what? I'm suing. And so he sued and went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And by a vote of 5-4, we almost lost the entire Second Amendment thanks to appointees to the Supreme Court by anti-American communist, basically.
And God rest his soul, Antonin Scalia.
Skull. Oh, you mix up Scalia and Soul. Yeah.
Right.
I was like, Skull, what? What's going on here?
God bless his soul, Antonin Scalia, who's, rest in peace. Folks, if we'd have lost that and Obama had appointed someone to replace Antonin, and then Heller came up, it would have been it. It'd have been all over with.
Yeah. If he had died prior to that, it would have been a tie, in which case it reverts back to the lower courts. But if any one of the people who were honorable enough to accept our founding documents, our founders' words on the Second Amendment, if any of them decided, you know what? Screw those guys, those slave owners, those evil people. I'm going to vote with the other 4 anti-American, anti-constitutional justices. That would have been it. Right. That would have been it. There would have been no Second Amendment after that.
Right. And we've got some great news coming again out of the DNC. We've got Democrats. There's now 18 of them running for president.
Oh, okay. Well, we had 19 Republicans during the run-up to Trump's election.
Right.
So, I mean, it is what it is. And it's funny because it seems like at least half of them never got over 1%.
Right. But they all did make a lot of money. Again, folks, it's a money grab. You're running for president of the United States. You're able to raise money, and what you don't spend, you get to keep.
Wow. It's like
and then spend and blow it.
I guess so. Or do whatever. And sometimes
that's why they call him Cocaine Mitch.
Wow. I was wondering why they were calling him that. Wow. Okay. I could see the slander lawsuits coming now.
I'm just saying that's the word on the street. That's what they call Mitch McConnell.
Right. Right. I think that's more of a term of endearment, actually.
Okay. So let's dive right into the Collusion Delusion is on full display. Absolute, complete insanity. And we're doing this on purpose. We're not talking anymore about the Russia. It is over, folks. The Russia gate's over with. We're not talking about that anymore.
Well, there's people that are saying, oh, the Democrats are going to keep going with this. But I tend to lean in your favor as far as what we know of it. What we have known for the past 2 years of the delusion is now over.
Right. I mean, you've got hanger-oners like Adam Pencil-Neck Schiff. And I was told that some Republicans are attempting to enter into law something called the pencil, and that has to do with Adam Schiff.
Oh gosh!
And
is it kind of like you can't put lipstick on that pig? And they were talking about Sarah Palin because weeks prior she said she's a pit bull with lipstick.
Right.
So it was kind of like a play with words.
Well, they used all the letters in the word pencil as the document.
Oh, gosh.
So the word pencil actually is an acronym.
Wow. It's an acronym?
Yeah, you got to look it up.
Who comes up with it? Like somebody got down there and spent an hour or so trying to figure that out.
Pencil.
Yeah, we need to make it an acronym.
Right. So we have
too much time on people's hands. I'm telling you, people.
So we have Donald Trump tweeting out, "I don't need to know anymore. We're done. Absolutely done. Mueller tried the case. There's no collusion." That's quoted by Lindsey Graham on Fox and Friends. And then Trump says, "No matter what we do or give to the radical left, it will never be enough."
Right. They want full destruction of us. And, we're just too nice, And I get it. Republicans don't wake up every day wanting to destroy their fellow human beings, no matter how evil or misguided they may be. And so that's our disadvantage.
Right. And I kind of complain silently to myself.
Yeah.
That Christians, at least the Christians that I've known that I've been raised with, a little too soft, a little too nice. I was always under this misconception that in order to be a good Christian, one that would make it into heaven, that you have to be delicate and soft and, just you can't be that hardcore redneck. And that's absolutely not true. Matter of fact, we did a whole series at our church, The Rebel, And it was all about Jesus being this. He's not this delicate soy boy. He was a rebel.
He's been painted as a soy boy by some people over the history. But you're right. I think that if you read into what he was doing, yeah, I think it was more rebellious.
Yeah, totally rebelling against the the powers that be, if you will, all the rules and all the regulations, throwing over the tables and the gambling that was going on, and just So they did a whole series at our church about it, and I thought it was fascinating. It kind of gave me a different outlook on that. And I think it's our duty to speak up and speak out. Now, you don't have to be violent about it, but certainly to be very bold in your stance when it comes to issues that go absolutely against everything you believe.
Right.
And this spying Donald Trump, I'll tell you what, I love doing this for the folks that aren't on Twitter. I specifically think of my father, your father.
Right. They're not on Twitter.
My mom asked me about it yesterday. She said, "You think I should get on Twitter?" I said, "Okay, hold on. You just told me on Facebook that somebody came at you, and then somebody else that came to your defense, and that incident, liberal versus conservative, that incident got you triggered that you just closed it out and ran away."
Oh, that's like your friend that I said delete your account, and he actually did.
Well,
I felt so bad for that, and then I tried to get him to come back. And
he never did. Yeah. So I told my mom, I said, if that incident is something that bothers you, do not get on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter is the Wild West of the internet, which and it's funny. I think it's great. But Jack Dorsey doesn't, and that's why he's destroying it. So, but anyway.
Right. And so this Donald Trump tweeting out, biggest scandal of our time, the coup that failed at Maria Bartiromo.
About yesterday, Attorney General William Barr. I'm scratching my head wondering why people are so stunned that the AG told the truth. He yesterday told lawmakers, said an intelligence operation surrounding the Trump campaign back in 2016 involved spying. If you've been following my coverage of the Russian interference, you've seen lawmakers say the same thing for the last 2 years. Watch this.
I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
Well, let me...
But the question is whether it was adequately predicated. And I'm not suggesting it wasn't adequately predicated, but I'd need to explore that. I think it's my obligation.
They got the information from Bruce Orr. Did they disclose this to the FBI? Because remember, let me make the major point. None of this was disclosed to the FISA court when they went and spied on the Trump campaign using these very sophisticated tools that we have in our arsenal that are supposed to target terrorists and other bad guys. They use to target a political campaign operative.
Remember, Maria, how bad it was when we all found out there was this unverified dossier that was used as a basis to gain a warrant to surveil someone associated with the Trump campaign, Carter Page. And it got worse when we found out that that dossier was paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC.
So, Congressman, the next angle for the Democrats now is to rip AG William Barr. They're trying to destroy his credibility right now. We know that spying went on.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This isn't a big shock, and so I don't know why the Democrats are shocked.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be a shock. But what he said was that he needs to determine if it was legal.
Right.
Yeah, and Judge Napolitano is trying to make the argument that it was legal because once the paperwork gets in front of the judge looks at it and signs off on the FISA warrant to spy, then it's all legal. And Judge Napolitano left it at that. And I'm just like, that's your conclusion?
I've got problems with him on various. I've got some. I used to hold him up as someone to really gain some legal knowledge from.
He was a great libertarian. He would always go high level, which I like. I like to zoom way out and see the forest for the trees. And he used to do that from a libertarian standpoint, which you hear me talk about a lot on this show. I like to zoom way out and just talk philosophically in general. And he was great with that. And then all of a sudden, he got in trouble with a little bit of a scandal. He got suspended for a short period of time. And boom, just like that, he comes back as a total cuck boy.
You don't think they got to him?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Oh, no!
100%. He is totally compromised. He's a shill for the Democrats at this point, and that's it.
So this on LouDobbs. We've got some great stuff coming out of it. LouDobbs is an absolute go-to guy.
Oh, yeah, he's good. He has not been compromised.
No, and Corey Lewandowski on as well.
He asked the president about this some time ago, and he said it very clearly. He believes this went all the way to the top of the previous administration. This didn't stop at Ben Rhodes or some other low-level underling. Barack Obama knew about this. He authorized it. It was either complicit or implicit in it, and there has to be accountability, and I'm happy Attorney General Barr is digging into this.
So Corey Lewandowski, I mean, he was there. He was at ground zero, if you will. He knows what happened, and he's clearly saying exactly what we're saying. Let Attorney General Barr investigate.
Right. And you know, that's what it really boils down to, is that we feel for the longest time that this has been a witch hunt and that there was a lot of bias that would have certainly led to, at the very minimum, highly immoral and unethical behavior by people who have the kind of power that us little people are fearful of. We don't want people behaving that way that can put us in jail. Look at Flynn and Papadopoulos and all these other people who they're spending time in prison. Papadopoulos told us about his 19 days in prison.
Right. And the guy, Misfed, this guy was painted to be a Russian spy to trick Papadopoulos and to make it look like the FBI set this up to make it look
entrapment, pure entrapment.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't a lot of people don't know this, but police officers, law enforcement are not allowed to coerce you into breaking the law. They're just not allowed to.
A very famous case, we're not getting off track, but a very famous case where cops would speed down the freeway, and what do? I usually kind of speed up and just stay behind him or whatnot.
You're staying with the flow of traffic.
Yeah. Say he takes off, it passes me up at 80, 90 miles an hour. I let him go for a little bit, and then I feel like I can speed up 75, 80. I'm good to go.
Just kind of trail him a little bit.
And then a cop then pulls me over and gives me a ticket. They found in this particular case that was on purpose. It was purposely done.
Right.
Two cops tricking people into believing.
Yeah. You can't coerce people to break the law as a law enforcement person. So that is the textbook definition of entrapment. And they certainly did that in many cases in the Trump administration or the Trump campaign. And we saw it with Papadopoulos. We saw it with Donald Trump Jr., where they're just trying to entrap these people. And you just can't do that. That's an abuse of power.
Yeah, General Flynn in his office with Peter Strzok and his other cohort, Flynn was showing different medals and different things he had. Strzok was asking him different questions about stuff in his office, and they were just chit-chatting away.
Right.
Lo and behold, all that was used against him to attempt to ask him questions about a conversation. And can you remember exactly what you talked about?
Oh, the whole thing is just ridiculous how much they were trying to get these people.
So, Lindsey, this at the Hill, Senator Lindsey Graham says, it is spying, but it's lawful if it was appropriately done. There is no doubt they didn't do this to Clinton. They did this to Trump. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out why.
Yeah, I like the wording on that. It's legal if it's appropriately done. This is the big difference between Lindsey Graham. That was Lindsey Graham, right?
Yes.
Lindsey Graham's statement and Judge Napolitano, who just said, well, once the judge signs it off and they have a legal paper, this whole thing's legal. What Lindsey Graham is saying is if any part of that process was done improperly, the whole damn thing is illegal. And in this case, we know that they tricked the judge, or the judge knew and was corrupt and signed off on something he should not have signed off on. That makes the entire thing illegal.
Well, and like you find out where people are released from prison because high-tech DNA and forensics say that they actually did not do it. So the whole damn thing gets thrown out and you're a free man. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, legally they spent time in prison, but after the fact, after they find out what the truth is, they don't say, well, he is a convicted felon, because he did go through the proper court system and a judge deemed him to be guilty.
He had
He's
to
a
register.
felony?
He registered as a felon. All the stuff. Yeah.
Once they find out that something. Now, by the way, that was all done properly. They just didn't have the evidence that exonerated him.
Right. There was still some evidence out there.
So it was done legally, but it all gets erased. Imagine if they found out that the whole thing was done illegally. Imagine if you were convicted of a felony because the cops doctor DNA evidence to make it look like you. Maybe they found DNA evidence elsewhere of
that
you.
has happened.
Oh, yeah, that's happened.
That has happened.
Now imagine that comes to light. That was illegal.
Right.
Totally illegal. So anyway.
So we've got Joe Scarborough. Joe Scarborough can't handle the truth.
Oh, he is such an...
I retweeted out his video clip that was tweeted out by Mediaite.com. And I said, Joe Scarborough hits William Barr for attacking U.S. intel the way Putin would.
I guess you could. I think spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur.
Let me just say how very, very dismaying and disappointing that the chief law enforcement officer of our country is going off the rails yesterday and today.
Nancy Pelosi.
He is the Attorney General of the United States of America, not the Attorney General of Donald Trump.
Good for Nancy Pelosi saying what we all know.
She's an idiot.
The Attorney General of the United States of America shamed himself yesterday by throwing out a Roy Cohn-type charge. Of course, unlike Roy Cohn, by the end of the hearing, he backed off of that.
Did he?
But in case
he doubled down.
Don't know what's going on at home, and in case you're trying to figure out why Donald Trump would say after Barr's letter came out that he said Robert Mueller ran an honorable investigation, so that he's basically an honorable man, and now he's freaking out, he's melting down.
Even Mika doesn't believe it.
The report, he knows what's in the report. And by the way, all of you people that took Barr's letter and ran your victory laps, and you were, yay for our team, with your flag up in the air, and you ran around, kept running around screaming and pointing at everybody else.
Look how upset he is.
You wasted a lot of energy.
Look how upset he is.
Really dumb now.
Do you think you've seen it?
Really
Maybe
stupid.
He's acting
You're going to look
now?
really dumb because the President of the United States, that should give. I'd love to play poker against this guy because he's got the worst poker face in the history of American politics. And Claire McCaskill, I go back and I think about all of the people gloating after you had Barr basically, again, playing Roy Cohn, something I've been saying for weeks now. Trump got his Roy Cohn. Trump said he wanted Roy Cohn. He got a respected name that a lot of respectable people vouched for, and now he's being Roy Cohn, shaming himself yesterday by attacking FISA judges, by attacking the FBI, by attacking law enforcement officers in America every bit as much as Vladimir Putin would.
Hold on a second. We've got to explain Roy Cohn.
No, Cohn is or was the family's lawyer. And when Donald Trump was young, years and years and years ago.
He's born in New York City, educated at Columbia University. Cohn rose to prominence as a U.S. Department of Justice prosecutor at the espionage trial of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, which concluded with Rosenberg's executions in 1953. As McCarthy's chief counsel, Cohn came to be closely associated with McCarthyism and its downfall. I don't understand the connection here. I don't understand how William Barr is Donald Trump's Roy Cohn. That doesn't make any sense. If anything, some of the members of the witch hunt against Donald Trump could be considered the Roy Cohn of the Russiagate hoax, because they've been pushing this thing. It's been totally fraudulent. A lot of people call McCarthyism, it was somewhat fake or it was overdone, and it ended up having a downfall.
Had a real bad effect.
Which Absolutely. Is what happened to the Russiagate hoax, which means that somebody on the Democrat side should be considered their Roy Cohn. I have no idea what they're talking. Joe is talking about.
Is he projecting?
I guess so.
That he's claiming that McCarthyism failed and was wrong, just like Bill Barr is going to fail and be wrong.
He's not accusing, unless they're trying to say, he may be getting ahead of himself here. He might be saying that we are now going to start a new McCarthyism where we go after deep state officials who tried to do a coup d'etat of Donald Trump. Maybe that's what he's getting ahead of himself, because that narrative isn't for months from now.
Not only that, but he was an elected official at one time, and somebody had died in his office, and nobody knows anything about that. You got to let that go. And also, him and Mika Brzezinski both divorced their spouses so that those two nut jobs could be happy together.
Yeah, they are meant for each other because they are both psycho. They both hate each other. They are. Oh my gosh! They get in fights on the air.
There was one clip on the air. You can find this on YouTube where he attempted to touch her and kiss her.
She said, "Don't touch me."
Yeah, it was
so awkward.
It was her Me Too moment.
Well, did you see that clip that we just played? Did you see how she tried to throw her 2 cents in? Clearly. Not really agreeing with Joe or confused on his commentary. When she tried to say 2 cents, he almost viciously ignored her. I know that's kind of a weird way to describe ignoring somebody, but he was just like, did not acknowledge her existence when she tried to talk, and she tried to talk over him, which she does all the time because he doesn't listen to her, and for good reason.
Right.
So interesting. But Roy Cohn, I honestly think that he was briefed. This is how insane they are. They live in an alternate reality that they construct in boardrooms and smoke-filled rooms behind closed doors that we don't get to see. And then they try to indoctrinate us on their new narrative. Him bringing up Roy Cohn, him bringing up Roy Cohn makes it sound like they had this discussion about how they're going to frame Donald Trump and his administration's retaliation, and rightfully so. This is an attempt at justice here.
Right.
To try to get to justice the people who have been going after him in what I consider to be a McCarthyist way. They're going to try to frame that as McCarthyism. That, oh, look at him accusing everybody of a coup d'etat.
It's the flip-flop again. What's right is wrong, and what's wrong is posted this up because The Hill posted a video of James Comey, and I had to reply to James Comey with at Merriam-Webster, the definition of spy, entry 2 of 2. So one that spies, A, one who keeps secret watch on a person or thing to obtain information. B, a person employed by one nation to secretly convey classified information of strategic importance.
Okay. With respect to Barr's comments, I really don't know what he's talking about spying on the campaign, and so I can't really react substantively. When I hear that kind of language used, it's concerning because the FBI and the Department of Justice conduct court-ordered electronic surveillance. I have never thought of that as spying.
Really?
And the reason I'm interested to know what he means by that is if the Attorney General has come to the belief that that should be called spying, wow, that's going to require a whole lot of conversations inside the Department of Justice. But I don't know what he meant by that term. And factually, I don't know what he meant because I don't know of any electronic surveillance court-ordered electronic surveillance aimed at the Trump campaign.
What?
So that's the reason for my confusion.
Horrible, horrible liar. So, okay, I don't need to get too much into semantics here, but there were some people that are in our inner circle that were discussing you don't get gaslit here. They're going to try to gaslight you. They're going to try to get you to believe that what they're calling spying is nothing more than vetting. We are vetting a possible candidate for possible ties to Russia. It's just a typical vetting. We do it with everybody. You want to be a member of the Secret Service? We have to vet you. You want a top secret security clearance? We have to vet you. Guys, it's so important not to get gaslit here. Vetting is a process of using public information that anybody can get. You just dive. You have to do the work to find it. Interviewing friends, family members, and colleagues, and people from your past. In an open forum, you go and say, "Hey, I'm with the Secret Service. I know your brother wants to sign up for the Secret Service, and we're here to ask you some questions to see if everything's on the up and up." They wouldn't do it secretly or anything like that. So that's vetting.
Now, they told John McCain that his chief of his campaign was dealing with Paul Manafort and ties to Russia and the Ukraine.
Okay.
FBI gave him the heads up and said, you probably should stay away from him. John McCain cut ties. The FBI also went to Dianne Feinstein and said, hey, Dianne Feinstein, your driver of decades is a Chinese spy. Probably ought to drop him. The FBI did not go to Donald Trump or the Trump campaign.
Right. And that's obviously an extremely important point. And that's something that you should never forget. And now spying in particular, spying is when you secretly there's a couple of – first of all, you're secretly watching them, observing them. But also you could be getting into private information. So, for instance, a microphone in a room, in your own personal bedroom,
right.
or picking up on the phone calls, which is private. All this stuff totally private. That's spying. So there's a very distinct there's a firewall between the definition of vetting somebody and spying on somebody. Now, the United States government, any part of it, state governments, anything under the United States of America is protected by the Fourth Amendment from spying unless you get the court's permission, and that would be because of probable cause. So if there's probable cause of a crime and you can convince a judge that you have legitimate probable cause of a crime, they can say, okay, all right, well, we're going to go ahead and waive their rights to search and seizure and allow you to spy on them.
Michael Cohen. They spied on Michael Cohen for months and months and months.
Right, and that was probably illegal too.
Without him knowing, and then raided his house.
Yeah, that was illegal I think they violated 2 of our Bill of Rights on that one. I think they violated the 4th and the 6th, but there's a bunch of them. And the bottom line is this: the Democrats are trying to make the argument that, well, we really believe that he colluded with Russia because we cannot believe he could win an election against the Clinton machine. Clearly he had help. So that's our probable cause. That is not – you talk to anybody worth their salt in law, lawyer, law enforcement, whatever it may be, that is not legitimate probable cause. That's circular logic. You have to have tangible physical evidence of a crime to get the probable cause necessary to have a judge give you permission to spy on somebody.
Right. Now, the people that were high up in the CIA and the FBI, these individuals, the Comeys that have been fired, the McCabe's that have been fired, the John Brennans of the world, this tweet didn't age very well. This goes back, dagnabbit, it doesn't have the date on it, but it goes back a while ago when John Brennan on Twitter, the former director of the CIA, probably the worst one ever, literally attacking Donald Trump and his family on a regular. This didn't age well. John Brennan tweets out to Donald Trump, when the full text of your venality, moral turpitude, and political corruption becomes known, you will take your rightful place as a disgraced demagogue in the dustbin of history. You may scapegoat Andy McCabe, but you will not destroy America. America will triumph over you.
What is his definition of America?
I don't know, but he was referring to Donald Trump's tweet. Andrew McCabe fired. A great day for the hardworking men and women of the FBI. Great day for democracy. Sanctimonious James Comey was his boss and made McCabe look like a choir boy.
So venality is the quality of being open to bribery or overly motivated by money. A government worker's venality might lead him to exchange state secrets for cash. So this is just total, complete made up by Brennan.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so now we get to the whole crux of the thing. People are in trouble, big trouble. Andrew Barr is going after the deep staters. He's going after the people that are involved. And now, thank the good Lord above, that Donald Trump, in his wisdom of 72 years old, has the ability to navigate the Twitters and get his information out.
Well, it's easy when you have righteousness and truth on your side. Donald Trump is just like, hey, stay on the straight and narrow. When you are in the realm of truth, evidence will always support whatever you say, whatever you do, and whatever anybody says against you that's on the other side of truth. It's just a matter of time before the evidence shows that they are the liars, the criminals, and all of that. And we're seeing that unfold today.
Right. And Donald Trump tweeting out, President Obama's top White House lawyer, Gregory B. Craig, was indicted yesterday on various serious charges. This is a really big story, but the fake news New York Times didn't even put it on page 1. Rather, page 16 at the Washington Post. Not much better. Tiny page 1 corruption news.
Yeah, 100%. Washington Post was the original Russiagate website, I guess, where they came out with the story on November 24th that pretty much kicked off the true Russiagate. It was the true kickoff. And never forget that about Washington Post. Totally fake news.
And so this from the Washington Times, Gregory Craig, ex-Obama White House counsel, expects to be charged in relation to the Ukraine work with Manafort. That was Wednesday. Thursday, he's now charged. And the Washington Post says stems from work Craig did with GOP. Got throwing GOP.
Of course.
GOP lobbyist Paul Manafort on behalf of the Ukraine Ministry of Justice in 2012. At the time, Craig was a partner at Skadden and Slate, the law firm. He joined after ending his tenure with the White House counsel for President Barack Obama. Manafort, the former campaign chair, and President Trump pleaded guilty last year to charges related to his Ukraine lobbying. Okay. This guy is being charged with almost exactly what Manafort did.
Okay.
Like literally, he's being charged not reporting what they were doing over the Ukraine. You got to make that known. You got to make that available and that information out there. Ironically, Podesta's brother was tipped off to go ahead and register for things that he did 5 years back and further.
Yeah,
John Podesta
generally not allowed to do that.
Yeah, Tony Podesta was in the clear. He's in the green. Yet Manafort goes down, probably going to die in prison. And now, folks, I'm not making excuses for Obama's lawyer. I'm just saying this is interesting that Obama's lawyer now facing justice.
It's actually shocking. It's shocking that's happening. But maybe it's just now after, draining the swamp is really tough. And maybe it's just now after all these years of a Trump presidency that you're finally starting to see what happens when you wrestle back the deep state from the corrupt people. And, deep state, people always say or think that when you hear the word deep state, it's like a pejorative against government. But actually, I just look at it as explaining what the government is or a sector of the government, just permanent employees of the government.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It just is bad now because it's totally, completely corrupt. It's what we call the swamp. The swamp would be a collection of both the deep state and elected officials that have just turned into complete corruption. And also you could throw in the media in there. But what we're seeing now is with Trump being able to finally wrestle back the deep state for the good, right?
Right. Well, go back 2.5 years and remind yourself what it was like when
Never forget.
When Trump took office and handed out an olive branch and said, "Hey, let's work together."
Oh, that was boy, that was naive, wasn't it? So naive.
So now we've got the Democrats running 2020, and questions are being asked. And the question is being asked, and people are wondering why all this stuff on Joe Biden is coming out. Why are the attacks on Joe Biden happening?
Democrats don't want him.
Bernie Sanders, why is this? And our good friend here, Irredeemable D Sharp at @SH_irredeemable. I'll give you the answer. All this vitriol against Joe Biden is coming from the Justice Democrats.
Oh, we taught you about them.
The fraction of Cenk, AOC, Ilhan, Rashid, total of 46 of their puppets elected to Congress in 2018. Fact, Democrat Party has been hijacked by the communists. They are destroying America.
Sure.
Now, I
100%.
won't. Just to correct that, all 46 weren't elected, but 46 of the 79 won their primary against another Democrat.
So they were elected to be the candidate for their party. And now out of those, only what, 7?
7 won.
And that may sound like low numbers, but gosh, they got a 10% return rate. They could increase. So if they put 70 people out there and 7 of them get elected, if they put out 500 people, that's 50. You know, that's what kind of – now obviously there's more to it than that. Like for instance, AOC – is in an area where a far leftist can unseat a more moderate, and that's what they did. They picked that spot for that very reason, and it's interesting. It explains a lot. So for those of you who don't remember, real quick crash course on Justice Dems. They're this organization that puts out ads for parts in that look like. It's a casting call, but instead of a movie or a show or a commercial, they're looking for people who can fill the role and act out the role of an elected official. And they're specifically looking for hard far left, right wingers, left wingers, far left. I'm talking full-blown communists and people who can stay on message. So AOC, when you hear her talk very sophisticatedly, that's not her words. She's being taught.
She's staying on message.
Yeah, she's very good. That's her skill. Her skill is when she's told what to say and how to respond to certain questions and all that. She's like a method actor. She's really gotten into the role and taken it. And she's just one example of the 70 that were picked in the casting call.
Right.
So,
and speaking of AOC, this has been blowing up. Paul Joseph Watson posted this video up of her being asked about it. And Paul Joseph Watson said, no, at AOC, criticizing your dumb statements isn't incitement to anything. Feigning permanent victimhood doesn't shield you from being challenged on your relentless idiocy.
The level to which Republican and conservative groups, whether they are official party apparatuses, sending out emails, calling me and others domestic terrorists, or whether it's Rupert Murdoch of the New York Post printing on the front page to circulate all around New York City an image that is incredibly upsetting and triggering for New Yorkers that were actually there and were actually in the radius, that woke up one morning or were in their schools and didn't know if they were going to see their parents at the end of the day. To elicit such an image for such a transparently and politically motivated attack on Ilhan, we are getting to the level where this is an incitement of violence.
Oh, come on.
Progressive women of color. And
progressive women of color.
They can't figure out how to get it back to policy. We need to call it out for what it is, because this is not normal, and this is not a normal level of political debate or rhetoric. As wild as it can get sometimes, this is something beyond what is normal.
Okay, so here's what she's so triggered by. So Ilhan Omar called the September 11th attack something. She just called it that some people did something. And it was very, very upsetting to a lot of people because it was more than just something, okay? And she was referring to the September 11th attacks where they flew jumbo jets into the Twin Towers, effectively bringing it down, killing upwards of 3,000 people and on American soil, American citizens and everybody else that was in those buildings and the Pentagon and all that. And what the New York Post did was print a giant front page, huge picture, the whole thing, front page, of a color photo of the second jumbo jet exploding in the second tower with flames everywhere, smoke coming out of the first tower, and obviously upsetting. But here's why they did it, and I wholly endorse this, fully endorse this. I was 25 years old when this happened, and I had just been honorably discharged from the Marine Corps. I was just spending 4 years defending my country, and then it gets attacked right after I get out. This was very traumatizing to me, and I don't even live in New York City.
2,977 dead.
To hear a Muslim congresswoman, a freshman, brand new, all these years later, downplay it the way she did, I felt the New York Post decided we can't let people diminish the seriousness of this. We can't
even let
people forget this. We can't let people call it some people did something on 9/11. Some people did something. Just brush it by. It's just something. It's just something. I think that what they did was a service to the country by making sure that people don't forget what happened. And for AOC to get so upset by that, I don't know how old she was. She's a very young woman, but she must have been in her younger childhood years when 9/11 happened. She obviously has been indoctrinated to not take it that seriously.
Right. And AOC is taking two instances. And I don't know, folks, false flag, something is really, really wrong with this situation right now. Omar is on video saying these things.
So to me, I say raise hell. Make people uncomfortable. Because here's the truth. Here's the truth. Far too long, we have lived with the discomfort of being a second-class citizen. And frankly, I'm tired of it. And every single Muslim in this country should be tired of it. CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties. So we are coming off a tragic nightmare that has happened to Muslims in New Zealand.
And people are thoroughly incensed. And now all of a sudden, this by the DaytonDailyNews.com fundraising email calling Congresswoman a terrorist was sent at the University of Dayton. Student's name. He's the chair of the Ohio College Republican. He said, that was sent out without my knowledge. I have no idea where that email came from, the origins of it. For it to try and fundraise for us, calling them terrorists, that was not us.
Oh, that's a little weird. That is a little weird.
And AOC jumping. Hold on. This is Dayton, Ohio. Mm-hmm. How is it that AOC is being called to ask about this by these reporters? Who's looking for these articles?
Well, it's called making the news. So if the news people just can't get a scoop and they can't figure out how to get traction, they start to do things to make the news. So apparently somebody that's friends with these newsmakers decided we're going to create a fake fundraiser calling AOC and her friends terrorists. So I believe that it was fake because the guy said, we don't know anything about this.
Hey, why would we do that?
Right.
We wouldn't do that. And some more stuff that you're not going to hear unless you're here on the show. This by Project Veritas. We were talking about Julian Assange being arrested. Project Veritas, undercover cameras catch Twitter engineers saying, yeah, they had to take down the account of Assange because the U.S. government pressured us.
Wow, I'm just now hearing this for the first time.
They don't like people messing with their politics at WikiLeaks. Is journalism, whether you like what they publish or not.
Right. So that was actually James O'Keefe saying that it was their journalism, whether you like it or not. Twitter got pressure from the government to pull it down.
Why
are they putting up with that? You know, this is why Apple, in a way, is my hero. I know they have their major problems, but at one point when Obama was demanding that Apple give up all their data so that they can spy on all American citizens, Apple was like, no. And then they got massive pressure. They got threatened. I mean, seriously threatened with everything you could imagine that the deep state can threaten you with. And Apple said, no, I think we're going to stand our ground. And you got Twitter who's just like, oh my God. Oh no, they're threatening us. Delete.
We were talking about Jack. I mean, soy boy.
Total soy boy. And then the woman that he hired, my God, she is so off the rails when it comes to the philosophy of freedom.
Right.
Oh, she's a megalomaniac. She wants to control her fellow man.
True. Absolutely true. And this also by James O'Keefe. This is news that you're not going to hear. The day journalists are handed subpoenas for legally reporting crimes is the day our criminal justice system is officially a farce. Why on God's green earth would attorney general offices bless the crimes reported and bully the media who reported the crimes? You're probably wondering, Brian, what are you talking about?
I am actually wondering what crime he's saying that the government is blessing.
James O'Keefe went to New Hampshire, and they also went to Florida. And in Florida, there's a woman who was married. Now her husband, they're divorced. Her husband moved to New Hampshire. They went to her house and talked to her about this. And she said, no, my husband doesn't live here anymore. Okay. He's in New Hampshire. And they said, well, did you know that he voted in mail-in early voting?
Okay.
She's like, no, he doesn't live here. They went to the guy's house in New Hampshire and said, bro, did you vote here in New Hampshire? He's like, yeah, I did. And they're like, did you know that you recorded as voted in Florida? Yeah, I was down there for a thing, and I just decided to go ahead and vote.
Yeah, that's definitely illegal.
He admits that he voted in both states on film. The guy knows he's being filmed. I didn't see the documents where he signed off legally allowing him to be filmed. But all of a sudden, Project Veritas is now hit with a summons to court to explain what they did and the dealings on with.
Are they charging the guy for voting twice?
That is not
apparently not
right. That's no.
They're blessing. So that's the crime that they're blessing, and they're attacking the one that is reporting on it. They're saying you can't report on a crime. Is that what they're saying? You got the subpoena in front of you. What's it say?
The subpoena says the state of New Hampshire subpoena to James O'Keefe. You are required to appear before grand jury of Hillsborough County Northern Judicial District, sitting at the Hillsborough County Court Office around Chestnut, 9 o'clock in the forenoon and every day after until your testimony is completed to testify to what you know relating to an investigation by the grand jury into the operations of Project Veritas.
What? I was waiting for him to say what you know about this illegal behavior of voter fraud. They want to know about the operations of Project Veritas. That's very creepy. That is very, 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 very. Why are they not worried about the fact that their voters are also voting in Florida? Think about it. Put yourself in the shoes of a Democrat in either Florida or New Hampshire. They want their people to vote in another state. Could you imagine being a representative in New Hampshire, knowing that your own citizens are having an impact on Florida politics? Right. That would be something that they would desire. that their citizens have an impact on Florida politics.
Such a crime. And as we're rounding out the show, I got to tip my hat off to old Brandon Straka.
Does that mean Brian is allowed to be assaulted right now?
You're allowed to physically punch the crap out of me right now?
Oh, my gosh.
No, Brandon struck at LAX. I believe it was LAX. I could be corrected. He is from the West Coast, and I lived there for 10 years. LAX, probably not the best place in the world to wear a MAGA hat.
You got to have bravery.
And he does, and he got into it with a woman who just it became famous, I guess.
Brandon Straka is the type of person that is very quick with his wit and very, very – he's got the gift of gab, all right? So the last thing I would recommend to anybody who doesn't like Brandon Straka is to try to approach him and get into a back and forth with him because you're going to lose against Brandon.
And our good buddy.
I wouldn't do it.
No, I wouldn't do it either. And our good buddy Scott Pressler.
Don't get into give. We saw him.
He got into it too, wearing a hat, and people trying to call him out.
Well, yeah, we were there when he was debating protesters in St. Louis, and he's good at basically throwing out an entire speech right to your face. So don't get into it with Scott Pressler either. He'll throw a whole speech in your face, and you'll just be like,
Right. This is kind of a real witty. I really like this. Follows us as well. Philip at 5 Rights. Since there are virtually no white supremacists in America.
Virtually, that's correct.
Virtually.
Yeah, virtually.
If you use the phrase white supremacist, you are the racist jackass.
Oh, I got to agree with that.
You are trying to use non-white privilege as a means to defame innocent people. You are Smollett.
Awesome post there, Philip. Awesome. I love that. It's true. Now, when I went to Atlanta, there was a place called something Mountain. I don't know. People in Atlanta know about it. Apparently, historically, that's where a big central rallying point was for the KKK. The people there still adamantly tell you, oh, yeah, that's where the KKK is. That's where all the people are. That's where they meet. We're not saying that it's totally non-existent. There's always going to be somebody, some organization that claims to be KKK. Maybe the original KKK is still a thing somewhere.
David Duke endorsed the Democrats. Or
yeah, my point is, number one, it's Democrats, but that's number one. But the big point that I want to support Philip on here is that the numbers are so tiny compared to the 308 million people in America that it's essentially non-existent. Right. Essentially non-existent. There's always going to be trolls. You know, it's almost like saying, hey, that guy that made the Pepe with the swastika on his arm, that guy's a Nazi. It's like, really? I mean, you may ask him point blank, and he may say, yeah, I'm a Nazi. I'm a Nazi. Come on, that doesn't mean that Nazis in America are a thing. It doesn't mean that the KKK in America is a thing. Their numbers have dwindled down to nearly nothing. Why? Mainly because they're Democrats and whatever.
That's the way it is. So rounding out the show, this by our good friend at SERREMMY, Emmy. Okay. Immigration doesn't go well when forced or Islam immigrating to America. And you don't need the sound, but this is in Germany. And for those of you with video, you can see what's going on, and I'll explain it. A gang of Arab-speaking youths targeted and viciously stabbed a Christian man in Berlin train station while yelling, "We F, people in your family, will finish you, your pig god, we F your pig god."
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're a non-Muslim and you live in Europe, I would keep a small baggie full of raw bacon.
Oh, bacon!
Yeah,
you could probably fend them off with that, couldn't you?
Oh, if you pulled it out, and yeah, I mean, I didn't know that they had such a visceral fear of.
Well, when you're told that we will kill you if you touch pork.
You got to use it for self-defense. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the founders did something like that, didn't they? Where they wanted to take care of a problem that they had in the Middle East back in the 1700s, maybe early 1800s.
Probably had to do with the Barbary Pirates.
Yeah, and bacon was actually the solution.
Nice. And folks, you're watching.
Bacon is always the solution.
I had some yesterday and today, and you're watching New Right Network tonight. Your host, Brian Smith, and
Carrie Smith,
giving you all the breaking news of the day, wrapping it all up, and making sense of everything. We exposed all kinds of fake news today, gave you the real news. Crush the share, crush the like, share this with your friends and your family. We go live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Enjoy your Friday evening.
Absolutely.
With your friends and your family, and we'll see you next week.
Yep, see you Monday.
You've been listening to New Right Network, mobilizing, countering, energizing. Online at newrightnetwork.com.